Hey there everyone, AJ here for the Mighty Loose-Stick channel. I've talked about imps and mephits. Time to talk about Quasits, another popular option for spellcaster familiars. Pesky critter and general stooge or toady of the lower planes. While imps are devils and mephits are elementals, Quasits are demons. They first appeared in the original Monster Manual in 1977 and have remained a constant part of the monstrous lineup in every edition of the game. They're also one of those D&D critters which have become part of the fantasy gaming world. They appear in loads of video games since they were included in version 4 of Rogue. You know that term roguelike game? Well, yes. That is the game of which they are referring to. As usual, having been around from the early years, the Quasit has gone through a few minor changes, but I think I can come with up with a nice solution to some of the design differences, since the lore of the Quasit has basically stayed the same. So, Quasits are demons. They have the usual demonic resistance to cold, fire, lightning, bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing from non-magical weapons. They have 120-foot dark vision and total immunity to poison. Also, their resistance to magic allows them to make all saving throws against spells and other spell-like effects with advantage. Formed from a binding of sentience with the chaotic corruption that is abyssal matter, demons spawn and evolve in a surprisingly orderly manner. The Quasit looks a lot like an imp because it is designed that way a very long time ago by the Queen of Chaos. She developed a ritual for turning a dretch into a Quasit and incorporated this knowledge into the template for Abyssal Lords. So when they evolve into Abyssal Lords, they automatically gain this knowledge. A Quasit has a poor time of it in the Abyss. They scuttle from one hiding place to another. Anytime they get caught by a larger and more powerful demon, they typically get press-ganged into service as spies or messengers, or painfully tortured and eaten alive. So most Quasits, though found all over the lower planes, make themselves pretty scarce, rarely appearing in their natural form and creeping around invisibly whenever they can. In their true form, they appear as greasy, greenish-skinned, frail-looking humanoids, usually with bat-like wings in older editions of the game, but without them in 4th and 5th edition. They have dark eyes, a full mouth of little fangs, long fingered hands and feet with wicked poisonous claws, a slender rat-like tail and horns, mostly on the head, but they sprout spines and little horns elsewhere. Sometimes the tail has a barbed tip. They have warts and pus-oozing boils all over their body and tend to be lazy shapeshifters, so they can have patches of fur, insect parts, misshapen horns and such, since they polymorph frequently into other forms and they don't generally pay a lot of attention when they shift back. This may be why they often have bat wings protruding from their back in artwork depicting them. When squeezing into crevices and getting away from larger beings, they reduce their horns and spines and physical bulk to a minimum, tucking in their wings, so to speak. They stand between 1 and 2.5 feet tall. They are also 1.5 and 2 feet tall, and they weigh around 8 pounds. So they're pretty tiny. As mentioned, they are shape changers. The Monster Manual for 5th edition informs us that they can transform into a beast form that resembles a bat with a flight speed of 40 feet, a monstrous centipede that can climb at a speed of 40 feet, or a toad with a swim speed of 40 feet, and their natural form has a ground speed of 40 feet. However, these are just convenient forms that they change into so frequently that they are second nature to them, but they are just as capable of shapeshifting into a wolf, wombat or weasel, or anything up to a medium-sized creature. Typically, a Quasit only has a couple of forms it uses all the time, changing into a more specific form according to the conditions, which is why those listed all have special movement rates, you may have noticed. If a Quasit is killed, they revert back to their natural form immediately. Quasits have a trio of other special abilities. First, they are poisonous. Though they typically use it in a claw attack, they can bite someone or even spit in their food to deliver the toxin. The victim must succeed on a DC 10 Constitution saving throw or take 2d4 poison damage and become poisoned for 1 minute. They can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of their turns to try and end the effect. How exactly this manifests is usually a weakening effect. It slows down and makes the target lethargic, sickened, and clumsy. And this allows the Quasit, which has a very high dexterity score, to leap around and avoid the bumbling victim, whilst they get lots of opportunities to make sneaky attacks. They have a supernatural ability to frighten one creature within 20 feet. The wisdom saving throw DC is 10, and failure will result in the target being frightened for up to 1 minute. The save is made with disadvantage, however, if the Quasit is still in line of sight to the target. Again, the victim gets another saving throw at the end of each of their turns, ending the terror on a successful save. It's particularly potent if the Quasit is sticking around leering from the shadows to continually spook with the supernatural frightening ability. Their last ability is the power to turn invisible. All they need to do is concentrate in order to turn themselves and in whatever form they're in, and anything they're carrying, invisible. The concentration is broken if they use their scare ability or attack a target, or if some other action by or against it breaks their concentration, just like a spell effect. So they naturally rely on all of these abilities to skulk about, and will always make sure that they have a certain escape route before they attack, trying to incapacitate a target first with poison and then by any other means they have. Once the victim is weakened, if things go against them, they will attempt to frighten the threat away and make good their escape, shape-shifting into a tiny form and turning invisible, fleeing to somewhere it's very hard to follow them. So, why do they exist? What is the reason that a demon lord would create Quasits out of dretches? Well, while most demons seek the destruction of law and order through rage and brute force, the Quasit is a weak, cowardly, and devious demon that seeks to corrupt the powerful and turn their power against law and order, creating devastation through proxy. They are drawn to evil spellcasters like moths to a flame and are eager servants. They are so easy to summon and bind as familiars that it is the most common situation that you will encounter them in anywhere on the primaterial realms. Quasits delight in playing very nasty pranks on mortal creatures. If left to their own devices, these pranks will be vicious and frequently involve the victim getting maimed, even killed. Being in the service of a warlock, a wizard, a hag, a tribal shaman, or other spellcaster does little to curb the tendency towards violence and sadism. It's in their nature to enjoy the suffering of others, the destruction of property, disturbance of the peace, and the orchestration of mayhem. An evil caster, a master, who has a Quasit familiar knows better than to try and stifle their minion. Rather, they merely rebuke any actions of the demon that disrupt their own plans and activities. Quasits may test their limits with a new master, but once they know that what they can get away with and not get away with, they'll not overstep their bounds. However, they will always seek to top their last prank, particularly if it's something that demonstrably amuses their master. Let's not forget, as a familiar, there is a telepathic bond between them, and the master is frequently looking through the eyes of the Quasit. So they have a first-hand witness of the effects of these nasty pranks of Quasits, and who doesn't enjoy a quiet and secret chuckle at some other person's misfortune? The underlying goal of the Quasit is to ingratiate themselves to their master. They will fetch spell components, find specific pages in spell books and lay them out for their master, draw the chalk lines in ritual circles, administer punishment to thralls and prisoners, share information of more powerful spells of destruction, corruption, and domination, give directions to the forgotten vaults that entomb horrors trapped by champions long ago. Quasits make themselves very useful, and in their willing service they play a very subtle game. Their components are laced with demonic chaos. The resulting spells are tainted with corruption. Their advice on new spells and research always leads their master further into a path of destruction and megalomania. They whisper plans that will convey great power on the mage, while the consequences will cause lasting devastation, freeing forces of evil to further the ruination of civilization and an orderly world. Quasits live indefinitely, if not killed by something else. They have a greater patience than most mortal creatures, but they do have their limits. Patience is a virtue after all. Spellcasters who fail to follow their advice, who are needlessly restrictive, who pose a constant threat to the Quasit, who show a tendency to mercy, compassion, humility, or other disgusting weaknesses, will find themselves a frequent victim of the Quasit's dissatisfaction. And if seriously threatened, the little demon will lash out with lethal intent before breaking any bonds and fleeing. But not far. They will most certainly engage in a campaign of obsessive revenge, of course, staying infuriatingly out of reach while engaging in a constant guerrilla combat campaign against their former master. At best, this will drive the enraged mortal to further acts of aggression and evil. That's a win for the Quasit. At least it will distract and lessen the influence of a spineless goody-two-shoes mage. It might even result in their death. Quasits were commonplace in the service of wizards of ancient Netheril and on Faerun. They flocked to the service of the vile wizards of Baal Terath on the world of Narath. They thronged in sanctums, profane temples, and rooftops of ancient Narfell. They flitter, lurk, and mutter their way around the dusky towers of Thay. They liaise between savage orc shamans, skulk around the delicate and glowing drow cities of the Underdark. In short, they can be found pretty much anywhere, particularly where evil lurks, and they will be at the centre of the rising tide of evil. That's their purpose. Typically, Quasit pranks involve gathering a sack full of scorpions and dumping them into children's playground, inflicting a whole street full of pets and dogs and cats with rabies, filling an ash bucket with searing hot embers and resting it above a doorway, so it will fall on the next person to walk through the door. They will not hesitate to poison any food their master is not intending to eat. They will weaken a ladder, scatter thumbtacks on the ground, fill potholes with vials of acid, set fires, sabotage balcony supports, and just generally cause a great deal of trouble. Seemingly little more than evil little tricksters, few realise the impact they actually have on whole societies as they work to create arcane supervillains and further the progress of chaos. Quasits speak common as well as abyssal. They talk frequently when not skulking around, typically muttering and swearing like an evil house elf. They very rarely have anything pleasant to say, will never pass on a compliment, and every now and then
they'll mutter something dark and mysterious, a hint that they know something secret and forbidden.
Thanks for listening, everybody. I'll catch you again soon.